We are back for episode 4 of Cowboy Bebop Analysis, this being session 4, Gateway Shuffle. In our last episode, we were introduced to Faye Valentine, who offers a ton of theories in the fandom about her relationship with Spike. Just for a reminder, I hold the idea that part of what captures Spike and Faye's interest in each other is a sort of kinship, recognizing similar traits in one another. Again, game recognized game. This is probably also why Jet accepts Faye as a member of his crew. It probably has absolutely nothing to do with Faye having similar features to Jet's old flame. Anyway, on to episode 4. Our episode begins outside of Jupiter's orbit, with Faye having torn through all of her food and still hungry. Her fuel is empty, her food storage completely depleted, so she's pretty much screwed. Fortunately, Faye has an almost terrifying level of luck. Hello, Poker Alice. We get the eye catch and some great detail of a space station, a commercial space mall I suppose one could really call it. So Spike and Jet are dining in one of the higher class restaurants, the celebration of a good bounty haul to come when they catch the guy seated near them. As Spike goes through the menu in different languages, Jet waxes about the restaurant's specialty of sea rat. He explains how sea rats were once a food of necessity before the space gate worked. At least until there were ad campaigns making out to be a delicacy. Jet calls it disgusting, but a food for rich people anyway. Spike shrugs it off and goes for lobster miso stew instead. There's an idea here about the concept of food sources and anti-consumerism. A very long time ago, lobster was actually considered a food only good enough for prisoners, slaves, and people low on the totem pole. By the mid-19th century, however, lobster turned around in popularity and many food markets took advantage of this by marking up the prices. Here in the future, a sea rat found on Ganymede tastes awful and similarly was a poor man's meal. Ad companies attempted to do to it what was done to lobster. Spike chooses to go with lobster, which has not lost its status as pricey food apparently. Spike and Jet eye space dandy, while we overhear a man talking about a spy to a woman, obviously the ringleader of the group, from where they're all sitting. The woman talks about continuing past the loss of one ampule, but that one among her henchmen will take the blame. Notably, they're all eating meatless dishes. The woman stops eating when Space Dandy yells for his dish of sea rat. Withering glare, withering glare, withering glare. Meanwhile, Jet's glasses can apparently see through cosmetic surgery. Very heavy cosmetic surgery because, well, future, anime, take your pick. Before Spike and Jet decide whether to grab Morgan, that is, Space Dandy, now, or eat first, the woman and her associates, now masked with sea rat heads, run up on Morgan. She speaks about the Ganymede sea rat, and Morgan gets a quick laugh with his entourage before they're gunned down as the ringleader sings. While Jet muses about knowing who the woman is, the terrorists pull out, but not before leaving their calling card. They're the Space Warriors. This has a real-world analog, as the logo is reminiscent of the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society, itself an organization that has been around for decades. The SSCS has led a global crusade against whaling, and Japan as well as other countries have been a target of their efforts. This has led to eco-terrorism attacks, of which more moderate conservation groups, like Greenpeace, have had issue. Jet remembers who the woman is, telling Spike she has a bounty to the tune of 25 million wulong on her head. She goes quietly when Spike pulls an ambush, only stating that Harrison will still be punished when she returns. He screams for Mom. Meanwhile, we go back to Faye finally speaking to the crashed spaceship, likely the same person the eco-terrorists tried to stop. He tells Faye to take something he has to the ISSP before passing on. Jump back to Spike seeing the background on the conservation group with the sea rat masks, the Universal Environmental Protection Society. Jet further waxes on how they were once a great group of conservationists who protected endangered species, and so on. Until, of course, leadership changes, more extreme actions taken, and focus on more violence and even crime syndicates. The ringleader, the woman in question, Twinkle Maria Murdoch. Spike inquires how they can turn her in, but Jet notes that the bounty on Maria has already been cancelled, to her glee. Meanwhile, Faye, who is told not to open the case, opens the case. She has no idea what it is or what it does, but we see some screaming monkeys and more of the Space Warriors loading whatever Faye had in that case into canisters. Cut to the Space Warriors as a politician gives in to all their requests, but the Space Warriors want Maria, or they will put a plan into motion. We jump back to the chimp in the cage with a jean jacket on, and we can assume what their plan is to some extent. Back to Faye and her monstrous appetite, not sure what to do with the ampule, but seeing a ship coming. Jet and Spike meanwhile realize that the incident from when they caught Maria hasn't shown up yet, and Maria tells them that they're just wasting time. Any train of thought is shut down thanks to Faye's signal coming in. Hilariously, Spike and Jet just stare at the computer. Faye finally realizes just who she's talking to. Time for the eye catch. And we come back to Faye, once again handcuffed to the Bebop. This never gets old. Apparently that suitcase full of money stolen was blown by Faye gambling. It really seems like she should stick to bounty hunting, which is more of her wheelhouse. When I made the comparison to Faye and Poker Alice, I did mean that Faye and her luck with bounty hunting was like Poker Alice in gambling, the one thing she excels at. Anyway, Spike looks through her stuff and finds the ampule, which causes Maria to start freaking out. Jet, in the meantime, tries to look up an old ISSP contact. Cut to the Prime Minister looking as though he might die under pressure of dealing with who I assume is the Ganymede president. An agent informs him that they found Maria, while Spike continues to try and open the ampule and Faye tries to cut a deal. Maria continues to look like she's freaking out. Meanwhile, Jet has a little back and forth with his usual contact Bob, and implies that Bob was on the take with Red Eye. It's always the Red Eye. This seems to convince Bob to give Jet some more information, while Spike does everything he can to break open the ampule. Why Maria Murdoch doesn't just tell him what's in the thing, I have no idea. Thankfully, Bob fills us in on the specialty of what is in the ampule and those canisters. A virus that effectively removes the 2% genetic difference between humans and monkeys. Spike grabs the gun and blows the thing. Maria gasps, but Jet catches it, letting it known that they have to let her go. The two ships meet, and Spike and Jet let Maria go. Maria Murdoch makes some statements about how the hour of judgment is coming, usual bad guy villain stuff, etc., etc. Cut to the Prime Minister trying to make an offering to Maria and her group. Maria, however, takes note of the conversation and still demands prohibition over conservation of the sea rats. Prime Minister waffles on it, so Maria decides a demonstration must be made, with Harrison finally getting his punishment. We have police ships following the Space Warriors until some canisters explode with signs. It seems for a moment that the signs were all that was planned, but we see other canisters floating, likely with the retrovirus inside. Jet meanwhile muses that there was so much work but no reward. That is, until Bob yells that Maria Murdoch and the eco-terrorists are making their move. The ship that the police were following explodes, and Spike and Jet hunt down the real ship. Maria Murdoch begins waxing about the threat she's about to see to, explaining that the virus puts humans in their proper place in nature. This is interesting because, judging by her earlier reaction, she has no interest in ever succumbing to the virus herself. She presses a large red button with her fan and looses one giant missile through the gateway. We cut back to Faye, who had earlier given a large, menacing grin to Ein while handcuffed. And somehow, she pulled a trick where Ein is handcuffed to the bars, and she's refueling her ship. Again, I must state that Faye has all the tools to be insanely capable at bounty hunting, and she's slippery enough as is. Spike goes after the missile, making the hyperspace jump. What comes next is one of the most stellar space scenes on the show. Spike looses his swordfish's laser cannon and pops 2 missiles, but doesn't have the means to get to the third one. Jet has no weapons online in the Bebop, but Faye steps in to help. For a meager fee to the tune of 60% of the bounty. Faye gets ready to shoot the missile, but it breaks off into hundreds of targets. Spike and Faye proceed to book it when they realize that the top politicians intend to shut off the hyperspace gate. They beat the gate closed just in time, and the two certainly have to be on par in spaceflight. Faye freaks out, but Jet assures her and chastises her for not paying attention in high school physics that matter that passes through a gate can no longer interact with anything once the gate shuts off. The Space Warriors pull an emergency brake since the gate is closed, not wanting to have the same fate as the missiles. Maria Murdoch, having a silent fit, watches as one of the virus ampules slides out of her dress pocket. She realizes that Spike, in a bit of sleight of hand, probably snuck it on her. The virus shatters, and we can assume what happened. Back on the Bebop, Faye shrugs off no reward, looking forward to their next great bounty. Jet and Spike, needless to say, are not amused. Spike continues grumbling, deciding to tell Faye to get off their ship while Faye goes to get a shower. Hilarity and gunshots ensue, while Jet smiles and wonders how he probably got here in life. We now have our 3 principal bounty hunters, our trusty loyal companion, and we're just missing our hacker. Next session, we delve into Spike's past, and finally meet his enemy without. Vicious. That's all I have for now. I have no idea what I'm really doing, but we'll come back for what is one of my favorite sessions, my favorite episodes of this series, Session 5, Ballad of Fallen Angels. See you, Space Cowboy.